And I've seen a lot of stories.
Right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining. I'll call this meeting to order and begin by acknowledging with gratitude that we live and work on the traditional unceded territory of the Secwepemc, whose peoples have been stewards of these lands and waters surrounding the Kleilohem, Bowen Island. Welcome to the Bowen Island Municipality meeting of Monday, June 8th, 2026, and thank you for joining. I'm Andrew Leonard, the Mayor of Bowen Island Municipality and the Chair of this meeting. I'd like to introduce, as I always do, the other elected members of Bowen's Council here this afternoon. Starting on my far right, we have Councillor Alex Jurgensen. To his left is Councillor Island's Trustee Sue Ellen Fast. To her left is Councillor Island's Trustee Judy Getty. To my far left is Councillor John Saunders. To his right is Councillor Tim Wake. And to his right is Councillor Alison Morse. We are also joined by several members of our professional staff team here this afternoon, including our corporate officer, Sophie Insignia, as well as our acting chief administrative officer and CFO, Kristen Watson, as well as other members of our staff who will be presenting reports here this afternoon. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded to YouTube and the municipality's website. For folks participating in the meeting here for question and answer, or in the gallery, or for public comments, personal information including your name, image, and any statements you make may be collected and used for the purpose of conducting council business and maintaining a public record. For those following along online, the permanent recording will be available on our YouTube channel as well as bowenislandmunicipality.ca. This council meeting is an official forum for the conducting of the business of local government. We all love our community. We are all passionate about what happens here. I would encourage everyone to maintain a constructive and respectful tone during the meeting and to direct comments during the public comment and question and answer portion of the meeting to myself. For those following along in the room or online, the agenda and full council package for this afternoon's meeting, including all of the staff reports, is available on bowenislandmunicipality.ca. And with that, I will look to the corporate officer for the introduction of any late items here today.
There are no late items this afternoon.
Okay, and with that, I will look for a motion to adopt the agenda, please. Moved by Councillor Wake, seconded by Councillor Getty. Any changes, amendments, comments? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that carries unanimously. Moving on to public comments, I'll look to our corporate officer for the number of public comments here today.
Just one this afternoon, and it's Paul Houston.
Okay, in person or online?
In person.
Oh, in person, okay. Mr. Houston, feel free to join us up here at the front. You have the full 3 minutes for your public comment. Your time does not start until you are ready, and
I'm ready.
You're ready?
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you so much for affording me this time. I have a bit of a handout, which I believe you already have, but I did it in color, so everyone can have the technical version. I hope it's proper to just pass that around. So I'm here, yes, in support of the honorary naming policy that's being presented today. I think it's really important to be able to name and have the opportunity to name certain facilities and streets and all this kind of thing in support of people that have made a significant contribution to our community. And specifically, I'm here because I wanted to nominate my good friend Ian Davidson, who's spent 40 years lighting every public event basically that's happened on this island. It is a little redundant in that tiny little 2x8, you'll see a picture of it there in the handout, 2x8 little plaques we put inside the technical booth of the theater, because he's the heart and soul of technical theater here on this island for so long. It's just a tiny little gesture to thank him for his unbelievable contribution. And of course, Lee Vincent's facilitated this, so I'd like to thank Lee as well. I went to the play last weekend, and I was surprised to see that little plaque is actually up. And it was wonderful, and Ian was over the moon about it. He felt really honored to be recognized in that way. So I'm not sure if it's officially been put there or whether Lee just stuck it on the wall, but it's a wonderful thing. I'd like to thank you, and I think it's very important to do this for members of the community who have made a significant contribution. I won't read out what's on that little handout. It's pretty self-evident, his contributions to this community. I will say one thing though about the actual text of the of the proposition that one of the criteria for inclusion is it's except in rare cases posthumous. And I'm questioning why it would be a requirement to be dead before you're recognized for your contribution. It did make an amazing impact on Ian to be thanked while he was still alive. And I think that I would take the word rare out of that. I don't know whether, you need to, because the criteria is quite stringent, as you'll see when you read the policy. I think it really does cover so much territory in terms of keeping it to be something that's only granted if it's truly welcomed by the community and appropriate and earned. But I don't think it necessarily needs to be said that it's rare, because I think the criteria as outlined does make it clear that it is rare. And so I would just suggest that maybe revisit that wording, maybe not put it in as a requirement to be posthumous except in rare cases. So I'll just leave that with you. I'm sure you can debate it, at whatever length you want to, but I'd like to thank you again for honoring our friend Ian, for allowing me to allowing us as in the arts community to put up that little sign. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mr. Houston. Oh, and I see a question or comment
Oh, I'm
from
sorry.
Councillor Getty here.
I wonder if we might get permission to amend your proposal here in the third paragraph, because it's almost 50 years.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Dave.
You've written down that it's almost 40 years that he's been doing his volunteer work. It's closer to 50. If we can amend your
Oh,
presentation.
did I make a mistake? I did make a mistake. It's actually, 49 years, because he told me it was 1970, or Maggie told me, so yeah. Thank you. What a mistake. I could take 10 years off my life too. I'm only 67 right now. Can we agree on that? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Houston. Okay, moving on to our agenda here. We are on delegations 3.1. We have Evan Parliament, Canadian Association of Municipal Administrators, regarding presentation of the Willis Award for Innovation.
So good afternoon, Mayor Leonard, councillors, staff, ladies and gentlemen. Apologies for not being there today. It is my practice to present this award in person. This is my 4th year doing so. But we have a council meeting and a committee of the whole meeting this week. And after being away in Whistler attending the annual CAMA conference, I am so behind work. And so again, apologies for not being there. But I do bring some great news. I am pleased to represent the Canadian Association of Municipal Administrators this afternoon to present Bowen Island Municipality with the CAMA Willis Award for Innovation for Municipalities with a population under 20,000. I am Evan Parliament, the CAMA Treasurer and Board Representative for British Columbia and the CAO for the City of Revelstoke. It was a pleasure having both Mayor Leonard and Gillian Drake, your Manager of Recreation and Community Services, at the recent CAMA conference in Whistler to accept the award. Each year, CAMA honors excellence in municipal administration through the annual awards program, recognizing achievements in 4 areas: innovation, environmental leadership and sustainability, inspiring workplace, and collaboration with external organizations and municipalities. These awards celebrate local governments and their chief administrative officers for creative and successful programs, projects, or services. The awards program promotes professional excellence in municipal administration, sharing success stories to inspire new ideas among CAMA members and other local government managers for implementation in their own communities. Given Canada's diverse communities, awards for innovation, environmental leadership and sustainability, and inspiring workplace are categorized by population: under 20,000, between 20 and 100,000, and over 100,000. This year, we received 41 high-quality nominations. The evaluation criteria include innovation and creativity, impact on municipal administration, transferability to other local governments, impact on the municipality and organization, and the sustainability and long-term positive effects. The Willis Award for Innovation, awarded in recognition of Jack Willis for his contribution to CAMA. This award recognizes programs, projects, and services that would demonstrate new approaches to leading, facilitating, and administering, which result in positive change to local government processes and practices, and ultimately bringing outstanding benefits to the organization and the community. Okay, for the fun part, this year's winner of the Kama Willis Award for Innovation for a Municipality with a population under 20,000 is the Municipality of Bowen Island for your Community Center project. At this time, I would like the video to be played before the virtual presentation of the award. Thank you.
We have audio for it.
Sorry, I'm not sure why the audio is not playing. Oh dear. Sorry about that. I'm not sure our new system.
Okay. Well, I can be the voice of God on that video if you want me to for a second. I'll leave the video for you folks, but it was presented at Whistler. And both representatives, of course, were there, Mayor Leonard and Jillian. The video should be shared on your website. You should be proud of it. At the Whistler conference, we did present the Kama Award, which sits to the right of the mayor there, I see on the desk. And I'd like to virtually present that to council and congratulate staff for a job well done. As I said, we had 41 submissions. There's tremendous applications submitted each year. And I believe Bowen Island should be very, very proud of this, as I am presenting it to you. So congratulations, folks.
That is great, Mr. Parliament. Thank you so much for being here today. We do have the award sitting clear and shiny on the council table here. It was wonderful seeing you folks in Whistler to accept the award last week and to be in the company of so many other great projects that we learned about that were receiving awards that day as well. We're certainly proud of this facility. We're proud of the programs that we run in it and the programs that we're going to be able to run it as it serves our community in the future. So again, thank you to the association for its consideration, for its selection of us, and for your presentation of the award here today.
You're most welcome.
All right. Okay, moving on in our list of delegations, we are on 3.2, Adam Taylor and Ron Cato, Bowen Island Museum and Archives, regarding update on Japanese Canadian Legacies project.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, great to see you again in front of us.
So to share my screen, how would I do that? So
Oh, at the bottom, you should have a little share icon. You see share? Here we go.
showing me the wrong, you're showing the wrong screen. So.
Maybe you just have to hit on each one on the side.
Hey, well, thank you for meeting with us today. Last time we met with you was in May 2025. And so we'll start off with a little project overview and work our way through where we have got to today. So collaborative project agreement that we had discussed last time we were here is now in place. We've spent a fair amount of time working on the design and refining it. And we're now ready to proceed with site work, but we're here seeking approval for the project from council today before we can go on to the site work. So just to go back to project itself, what's the project about? It's about commemorating the lives and legacies of Canadians of Japanese ancestry that lived here on Bowen Island, to remind present and future generations that this ethnic cleansing did occur, to raise awareness, and to help prevent this sort of thing from happening again, and also to create a beautiful interpretive memorial site that will hopefully encourage reflection and create some hope for the future. In terms of the project itself, we were successful in obtaining a little bit of additional funding. So our construction budget has been increased by about $40,000 as a result. As an overall vision, project is about commemorating the Japanese Canadians that lived here, and serving as a reminder that these kinds of laws were actually enacted here in BC. And but I think primarily it's about providing hope. What we're looking at. We produced a one-pager last year. So the collaborative project agreement, just to go over that a little bit, our funder, the JCLS, Japanese Canadian Legacy Society, required that the site had to be publicly owned. The proximity to the ferry was seen as very important, and the setting, an appropriate setting, and aligning the process, I think, is what we're doing here today. It's been a bit of a challenge. There's the site. And these are some of the things that we're focusing on in terms of design principles, objectives. I won't read through all these. In terms of the cultural component, we're feeling the memorial really should clearly convey cultural heritage. And there's a concept of kintsugi, Japanese concept about fracturing and rebuilding and having something more beautiful come out of the rebuilt form. One change that we, from last time we were talking, or we presented the idea of a torii on the site, a Japanese gateway. And what we found was the site itself and the scale of the torii seemed to be mismatched and the site conditions. And so the torii would have had to have been at a scale, I think, that would have been too large for the footprint of the site, considering that those large trees are there. So we've backed off of that. So we had this site survey done by Bennett, and so a few annotations on there. Those site constraints. Now getting into some new things. We had an arborist study the trees on site, and well, they're concerned primarily the root zones of all those large fir trees. Fir trees have sensitive roots, and as you can see, they kind of power over the site. We also engaged with Phil Osborne, a geomorphologist. We were wondering, is that slope stable? You know, considering that sea level is rising, how long is that beach going to be there and the slope? And Phil's take on it was that at the current rate of sea level rise, that the base of the slope might become inundated in the next 50 to 75 years, which would start affecting the vegetation that's on the slope. But he didn't think the slope itself was in any immediate threat. That was one thing they're concerned about. It's just a slide of the existing conditions, what's there on the site. Before the Japanese cultural elements, what we're thinking of now on that drawing, so on the, use my pointer, so there's the red piece, there's an entry gateway. It's an image of it here. The site's been thought of as a circular path, and there's 3 interpretive signs located on the site, a little stone bridge over here, and a bench. The turquoise element is a bench. And we're contemplating putting up some cedar screens. And those are there just to help focus the attention onto the site itself. There's a lot of neighbors and things off the site that could be a little distracting. The pathway, as I mentioned, what we're thinking of is a gravel path. Just some images here of the kinds of things we're thinking of. There's an image of the bench. Screens, we're concerned that that blocking the site from just visual access from the street itself could be a concern. Probably the neighborhood wouldn't like it very much. And but you know, the idea of the screens that we've developed here is just to put them in certain specific locations, so that when you are at a sign, that there's an opportunity to create more of a place at the sign. The signs themselves look like that. They're large timbers with the sign mounted on them. So the story that we're trying to tell is conveyed through these signs. Memorial really is, I guess, a journey. Design is a journey along the circular path. And trying to balance historical, education, emotional resonance, visual restraint, and sensitivity. The signs, the themes of the signs, the first one at the entrance is about the context, that what the context was in the day in 1942. 2 and 3, signs 2 and 3, closer to the water, are meant to depict the lives of former Bowen Islanders, bring it a little bit to life, the kinds of things that happened here. And then the bench, as I mentioned before, it's over here, and it's meant to be a contemplative spot overlooking the sandy beach and where the resort used to be. We're also looking at, from a restorative aspect, looking at the site as trying to remove some of the invasives that are there on the right-hand side, where it's basically underneath all those fir trees, and it's quite grassy. It's lighter type of remediation. But on the left side, where there's currently a discharge from the road drainage, there is the only spot on the site that really is supporting growth. and many different species in there. And so what we're thinking there is to enhance Indigenous planting in that, along the pathway there. And to, as a part of the project, to try and remediate as much of that area with Indigenous species as we can. There's a lot of invasives in there right now. In terms of the site sensitivity and project materials, so Japanese garden structures are traditionally made out of wood. And both the gate and the bench, though the designs we've selected are done, will have roofs. So that'll protect most of the wood members underneath. And we're looking at shingle or metal roof, but a long-lasting roof over both of them. We're looking at, well, procuring the cedar here on the island. And then because of the sensitivity of the tree roots, they're so widespread, we're looking at a foundation system that is these micropiles. So they basically bring a machine on the site, and these things they're like giant augers, and you don't have to excavate in the same way. So if you can get them in the ground, they provide enough structural support to hold things like what we're looking at up. So the question is, can they get them in the ground? Because there's a lot of, we think, things in the way. We can't do any explorative work either because through the site. So just to finish things off, project status. So we've been engaging with Carla and over the past year, working through her concerns. We have the collaborative project agreement in place. And today we're seeking approval in principle for the project. As we've shown it to you. Next steps. So we're hoping to initiate construction activity. The schedule is getting tight. So the way that we need to do this is to build the pathway first so we don't damage the site while we're doing the other things. We need to start awarding contracts for the fabrication of the elements that'll be on the site. And then we've got this opening ceremony now planned for September 26th. So we've got our backs up against the wall in terms of timing. I think the timing still works for us, but that's why I'm here today. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cato.
I can add one small clarification on construction details and the routes. We have engaged extensively with consulting arborists that I've done a lot of work with in the past. The intent is to minimize ground disturbance and slightly raise the grades in a few areas, so we're not digging down into the roots if at all possible. And then the micro piles would be capped with a small concrete pile cap to tie the things together, and then the wooden elements would be bolted or attached to that, so there would be no direct ground to wood contact to try to maximize the life expectancy of any structures on the site. I just wanted to clarify that. And the proposed screening is lower and thicker materials, not your typical lattice. It was just trying to create a sense of a garden room and provide a little bit of separation or sense of place between site and the road or the boat ramp and whatnot. So just wanted to clarify or elaborate on that.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. And I know that we are discussing this as a business item in short order, but I'll look to council for questions or comments of our delegation, who I hope will stick around in case there are additional ones during the business meeting. But over to you, Councillor Fast.
Thank you. This really, I had read the materials, but your presentation has clarified some things for me. Like I'm not sure that it's bigger. It looks like it's more fitted to the site. I'm wondering if you can speak to I saw the word accessible trail in there. And if you could say a little bit about the accessibility of the path, I guess I should say, not trail.
Okay, so we see there's we see it as the site is having, I guess, two halves. So the first half after entering is fairly flat, and that can all be done at a grade that is appropriate for accessibility. the left side, after leaving this bench and trying to go back to the beginning path, that grade is slightly steeper than what would be considered accessible. And so I guess the way I've always understood accessibility is that it's to be approached so that it's you don't try to make people go back along the path. So to me, this is not exactly accessible. It works, but not ideal, but we don't want to work the grades in a way that would affect the site that much. So that's why we're thinking that this short piece from the bench back to the entrance, it's not steep, but it's not the shallow grade that accessibility.
Thank you.
And due to that grade, a differential, we're likely doing stepping stone or something more, cultural or something a little bit different versus the main path will be gravel. So it's, fine material, easier on strollers, mobility devices, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, so the grade would be approximately,
The path returning up, I'd actually have to go do.
no, the path
Oh, the
going
path
to
would
the
be,
bench?
would meet ADA compliance
Thank you, to the bench.
to the bench.
Yeah,
correct.
great, thank you. ADA is,
Americans with Disabilities Act.
thank you.
Counselor Jurgensen, followed by Counselor Morse.
All right. Thank you so much for the presentation. Thank you so much for the presentation, and just wanted to let you know that the offer to assist with accessible signage still stands.
Appreciate that.
Over to you, Counselor Morse.
I just wanted to clarify, when you say stepping stones, you're just meaning to smooth the surface rather than actual stairs.
Correction, like flagstone, basically. But flagstone would not make the grade or would not be acceptable for an accessible path because of potential cracks and this and that, so. It's just too steep to physically connect the two spots without raising the grade at the bottom, which then impacts the roots and anyway, it's just not possible to return to we can return back the same way.
But as long as you don't have to go up and down stairs, that was all.
No,
I
no
was
stairs,
asking.
no stairs.
Yeah, I mean, it is possible to make a longer path, but it would be quite a bit longer.
No, I was just worried about you putting in stairs.
No.
I'm going to say, if you're gonna do that, you've got
No,
to. put in
we're
railings.
talking, instead of like a 5-6% grade, we're talking like a 10% grade. Like it's gonna be not as steep as walking up the path outside coming up the road here.
Counselor Fast, followed by Counselor Wake.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, can you remind me, has your project or the Museum and Archives had contact with the Snug Point Neighborhood Association, or are they aware of this project?
I know some of them are. I don't think we've talked directly with the association.
Okay, as long as nobody put that out there. I was just wondering.
Counselor Wake.
Thank you. So you've mentioned the cedar screens, and there's two images of vertical cedar and horizontal, but you also mentioned, I think, a lattice. I just
We're
wondered,
trying to avoid lattice.
Oh, you're
So
trying to-
people think
okay.
of cedar screening and they think of thin
Right.
aged lattice.
okay,
Because we're looking at milling donated timber, we're looking at cutting some like 2x2 and like a
Right.
few different sizes, but not thin lattice, something that'll have a little bit of structure.
right,
The top of typically in a Japanese garden wall, there would be a little bit of a cap over top of the fence structure to give it a little bit of weather protection as well. But yeah,
and is it gonna be vertical or horizontal or something else?
we're,
No, I think the idea is to create some visual interest in a simple way that doesn't have a huge cost associated with it. So it would be a variety.
Okay,
it'd be a panel, some planting, a panel, some planting, an open spot, and so on and so forth.
well, looks great. Thank you.
Okay. Not seeing any further questions or comments. Thank you so much for being here today, and we'll be taking this up in a few minutes as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bringing council's attention back to the agenda, we are on the consent agenda. I will look to council for items that they would like removed from the consent agenda. Councillor Fast.
Remove 12.3, please.
Councillor Getty.
12.4.
Any other councillors wishing to remove items from the consent agenda? Not seeing any. I'll look for a motion to adopt the consent agenda, please. Moved by Councillor Jurgensen, seconded by Councillor Getty. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That carries unanimously, and we will deal with the items pulled from the consent agenda in numerical order, starting with 12.3. Letter from the Ministry of Water, Land and Resource Stewardship regarding Squamish Nation Land Use Objectives Order dated May 21st, 2026. Over to you, Councillor Fast.
Sure, thank you very much. I'm just, I've sent in a draft motion to our corporate officer who can hopefully pull that up. This is related to the presentation we saw about the Squamish Nation Land Use Agreement with the province. We most recently saw this at the April 17th Howe Sound Community Forum over there in Lions Bay. And this is a opportunity for public engagement. And I just thought we might wish to support the idea of putting regulations into play through legislation. So the final approved order after this phase of engagement, the province plans to bring it back. I'm looking at the letter that was attached at the bottom of 12.3. Establish legal objectives that forest tenure holders will need to incorporate into their respective forest stewardship plans within 12 months of the date. So it's basically something to enforce rather than just a plan that's been adopted. So this is just the next step in protecting the forests and biodiversity, and by legal order under Section 93.4 of the Land Act to protect Indigenous cultural values and improve forest stewardship within the region of the plan. So I've got a draft motion up there that Sophie's just put on the up on the screen there, and I move that council direct staff to provide comments through the provincial engagement website indicating support for the proposed land use objectives in the 2025 Squamish Nation Land Use Planning Agreement.
Okay. So we'll consider that moved by Councillor Fast. I'll look for a seconder, seconded by Councillor Wake. Discussion on the motion as written. Councillor Morse.
I'm not necessarily happy that this is an on-table motion at a meeting where we didn't know it was going to happen. Also, it's not clear in the motion that are we agreeing to the whole of the land use plan or just the forestry principles that are in it? And if we're supposedly agreeing to the whole of the land use plan, then I think we need more explanation as to what the logic is behind the areas on Bowen that are identified as cultural or are identified on the map with no explanation as to why they're identified. So I'm not in favor of supporting this at this point in time. Given the time frame, we've got better time to refer to staff and look for it and do some research.
Okay. So just a couple of comments. The motion is in order, so it is a point of business. So council is free to make motions on any point of business that it does that it wishes to put on the table. You know, alternatively, there is the ability, Councillor Morse, to move that this be referred to staff. I see Councillor Fast with a hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Just to say that I didn't think it was on table because it's in the agenda. And also, many of us have been seeing these things to do with the Squamish Nation land use objectives order or plan, sorry. And the deadline is July 20th. So there is time if we want to refer it to staff. It's a questionnaire that's at a website, so I didn't go into all the details. I just thought we'd refer it to staff, and some kind of indication of general support was what I was thinking of.
Okay. Councillor Morse.
Well, given that the motion on the table just directs staff to provide comments, I would prefer a motion to refer to staff for more information on the areas that have been identified on the plan for Bowen Island and the implications thereof. Which means defeating the motion that's on the table right now and then having a new motion. If my understanding is correct of the process.
There's a couple of ways to go about it. In
Or
my
I can
understanding,
Refer to another meeting.
there's the ability to postpone, which is one motion. There is the ability to refer a motion to staff or a committee, or there is the ability to amend a motion, or it can be voted against and tried again, should that be the outcome.
Well, then I'll try, I'll move that we refer the motion to staff for comment and further clarification on the areas that are identified on Bowen Island and the impact thereof.
Okay, moved by Councillor Morse, seconded by Councillor Jurgensen. Discussion on a motion to refer. Councillor Saunders.
I'm actually, can I make a point about the first motion, or are we now only talking about the second one?
Only talking about the second motion. Yep.
I'll withhold my comment for now.
Not seeing any further discussion or debate on the motion to refer. I will call the question on the motion to refer. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Right.
Aye. All opposed, raise your hand, say nay.
Nay.
Are you aye or nay?
Aye.
Okay, so let's,
Any question?
all opposed, raise your hand, say nay.
Nay.
Okay, so the motion to refer carries with Councillor Wake and Councillor Fast in opposition. Moving on to 12.4, Rachel Shaw from the Ministry of Energy and Climate Solutions regarding response to Fortis BC discharge permit dated May 22nd, 2026. Over to you, Councillor Getty.
One of the, I think that the letter from the ministry is supportive in some ways and quite vague in others. And it was, one of the comments was that by now we would have heard that the BC regulator is in the process of responding to us. And we should expect the response around the same time as they're reading this letter. I haven't seen that. I wanted to ask staff if we had received anything from the regulator. And my understanding from the Sea to Sky website is that it's really hard to get information out of the regulator, and that they have been slow in terms of picking up on both the length of time that the discharge has been over the original specifications and putting some pressure on Fortis in terms of getting them to ameliorate remedy the situation. So I would like information from the staff whether or not we received anything, but assuming that we haven't, because it hasn't been published, then I would think that it would be in our interest to either write back to the minister or write to the regulator and just sort of say we're still concerned. And if the discharge since March, when they apparently had made some improvements, has not in fact reduced, that I would suggest that our position should be that we're asking the government not to consider any expansion of the discharge permit unless and until they've figured out a way of controlling the heavy metals in the discharge. So a question for staff and a follow-up in terms of another letter.
In terms
Yes.
of a response, we've not received any additional letters from the ministry.
I assumed we would have had it if it had. Okay, so then I think a follow-up to the regulator, asking them the same questions as the original letter. What are they doing about it? And our request that they not proceed with any expansion unless there's a remedy.
Okay, is there, I'd be looking for a fully crafted motion on that one.
Okay, council request staff draft a letter or send a letter to the BC, what's it called? BCER, energy regulator, asking for an update from our original letter dated May the 5th regarding FortisBC's discharge into Howe Sound. Okay. I can't pronounce it. Akletsum?
The Katsum.
And that further that they not consider approving any expansion of the discharge permit unless and until there's an appropriate remedy. Particularly for the heavy metals, but
Okay, so, and then just for clarity, I'll have that read back by the corporate officer.
Just a moment. That council directs staff to send a letter to the BC Energy Regulator asking for an update from the original letter dated May 5th regarding FortisBC's discharge permit into Howe Sound at Katsum. And further, they not consider approving any expansion of the discharge permit unless and until a way of controlling heavy metals in discharge is sorted. Does that work?
So moved by Councillor Getty. Is that a second, Councillor Morse? Seconded by Councillor Wake. Discussion over to you, Councillor Morse.
It clearly says in the letter that there's a increase to their upgraded wastewater treatment system. And that they've applied for a revised, so I don't see why we don't just let their application process play out.
Councillor Getty.
well, the letter says to improve the discharge water quality and accommodate increased volume, or FortisBC has upgraded on-site water treatment systems. These upgrades, which came into operation on March the 31st, are anticipated to reduce non-compliances moving forward. So we don't have the results of that. And that's what, 2-3 months ago. They should have some sort of results, whether or not they have been able to make any improvements. And certainly the Sea to Sky people were very skeptical of that. Both the science and the technology that was available for them to be able to do that. And at the same time, if they don't have a water treatment system in place for what's existing, what are their plans for the expansion?
Councillor Saunders, followed by Councillor Jurgensen.
Thank you, through the chair. Just, I mean, all this motion is really asking for is an update on this letter. I don't see a problem with that. Just saying, hey, you said time's up. We'd like to hear more. So I'd support it.
Councillor Jurgensen.
I would just like to second what Councillor Getty was saying. It's obviously if there's issues now and all compliance is not dealt with now, going forward with an expansion sounds like a terrible idea.
Okay. Not seeing any further speakers, I will call the question. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, raise your hand, say nay. And that carries unanimously.
Okay.
Back up to section 8, staff reports. Now that the consent agenda is completed, we have 8.1, approval of the Japanese Canadian Memorial Project. We have Carlos Goose, our Manager of Environment and Parks Planning, joining us here today.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Through the chair, I haven't prepared a presentation today. You've already seen one on this project. So I'm just here really to take questions. I have a couple of comments just saying that this CPSA allowed us for some flexibility to approve the final design after the CPSA was signed and after council had already had their eyes on a proposed project site plan and approved the CPSA, and that was required for the grant timeline, and so we were okay with that. Staff is still supportive of this project and understand its importance. But we felt that it was also important to seek council approval, given that we felt the scope had increased. Beyond what was approved, seen by council and approved by council. And knowing that it's council's purview, the purview of council to consider the long-term financial implications of adding additional infrastructure to parks and understanding what the maintenance and eventual replacement costs of that infrastructure is at the end of its service life. So we're just here to ensure that council is supportive of the expanded scope of this project before we allow it to proceed to the next steps.
Okay. Thank you to our manager. Over to you, Councillor Fast.
Thank you. I'm looking at your report, which is on page 50 to something, 50, 59. And I appreciate it coming back to council because it has changed a little bit. And I was glad to hear from the delegation about what had changed. And I'm not sure that the, what I had written down was scale, question mark. And to me, it's actually now appears to be in a better scale, but I'm more concerned about the replacement costs. Well, I've got a couple of questions. In the agreement that we've got, the collaborative projects agreement, does it say that that the municipality will be replacing it at the end of its life?
The agreement doesn't, through the chair, the agreement doesn't explicitly say that we will be replacing it at the end of its useful life, but we do take on ownership of all of that infrastructure. And I would say it's probably implied. It does say that we will take on maintenance of that infrastructure, if in particular in relation to any safety concerns.
Okay, well, okay, thank you. So the answer is no. It doesn't say we're going to replace it. Okay, and then can you comment on the potential impeded use of the boat ramp? I saw that in your report.
Yeah, through the chair, we, in the site plan that was presented, there's from the parking lot, the pathway comes around in a circle, and there's a gate that you walk through. And the next thing is a interpretive sign and then 3 fence panels. And so those fence panels potentially could be blocking someone's view if they're trying to back a trailer down that boat launch. The boat launch isn't very functional for any kind of probably actual larger size boats, but I know that people do use it for launching like kayaks and non-motorized vessels, as well as things like jet skis.
Oh, jet skis. Okay,
Yeah.
I've seen it used for little sailing dinghy type things as well with the trailer. But okay, okay, thanks.
So I would just add a little bit more to that is we expressed concerns about that, and I believe they did try to move it back a little bit, and maybe we can discuss that a little bit further. But some of the fence panels were removed, I think, to kind of accommodate the boat launch, but we would make sure that those sight lines are clear and not allow any panels to interfere with use of that piece of infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. And I see a hand up over there.
I can clarify if it's appropriate. Any panels would be above the slope, that's above the retaining wall on the ramp. And it would be in line with that. So there's the power pole that you'd have to go around. So the panels or the site would not impede the flow of traffic on the path, on the boat ramp itself. There might be a bit of a sight line, like she mentioned, but more likely people are gonna go past and back down from the CNIB side, because coming from the other side, the grade's too steep and it's powerful.
Yeah.
So.
Gotcha.
But
Okay.
we did make sure to pull things back to leave space. The only thing we can theoretically see is if someone wanted to just dump a trailer on the lawn there, which they probably shouldn't. wouldn't be possible because there's a footpath now,
Right,
so.
okay. And one more question, if I may. For the parks planner, the invasive plants that would be removed, is that mostly blackberry there, if I'm thinking?
Through the chair, there's some blackberry there and it's the little one with the purple flowers. The name periwinkle.
Oh,
The name
thank you.
always escapes me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, thank you. That's good. I've got more to say, but I'll save it for after the questions.
Okay. Counselor Getty.
If, it's not unusual in a collaborative agreement or just as projects go along, 20 years from now that all the circumstances can change so that it would all end up being a responsibility for the municipality. But it seems to me that these structures are relatively, other than perhaps some complicated joinery for the gate, are pretty basic and simple and would not be enormously expensive if we did have to take on the maintenance. Do you have any ballpark figures of either from the organization or from the Muni's point of view, if we did have that responsibility? I mean, it's what, $7,000 for the screening brand new, so.
Through the chair, I would say that the larger cedar pieces, there was some concern that as cedar stocks dwindle and old growth forest, that those things are going to be harder to come by and that those prices could increase as time goes on. I think that there's also options for replacing them with something different when it comes to farther down the road and circumstances have changed. You know, I have some concerns, say with the fencing, if it's freshly milled cedar and those twist and then they don't look as good and we get calls to come and fix them and maintain them throughout the years, like that would be more of a concern to me. But the costs that were provided of 53,000 for all of the, that's, I guess, all of the above ground structures as well as labor seems reasonable to us.
Not seeing any further questions or comments. I'll look for a motion. Counselor Fast.
Yeah, I'd just like to lead off with saying I'm in favor of the project. I look to the interpretive sign that's down at the causeway, which has a roof over it. And that sign has been there for like 25 years and it has never been, not even vandalized, even though it's right there beside the causeway and it's in good condition and I don't even think they've had to replace the roof down there. So that's just in the same area, same environmental conditions and fewer and more people nearby. Because sometimes vandalism of sites is a problem. I like that the site has been consulted more carefully and that this is now more tailored to the actual slope and the trees and the roots and that kind of thing and the beach and the slope and the sea level rise. And I like the scale and I like that it will be an inviting little walk experience because I was a bit worried about the Big Tory being an attraction that people would want to drive to, whereas this is more of a walking invitation. So it fits with the pedestrian kind of, if people are going to come from the mainland, they could walk. And if people are going to come from the cove, they could walk. So anyway, I like the focus on the experience and the messages and the meaning that people can experience through the design of the site, all those things. I'm having been involved in the original trail down to Sandy Beach and trying to make that wheelchair accessible is what we were after at the time with a contracted parks planner through Metro Vancouver Parks. Metro Vancouver's, because we were not a municipality then. I know that the site has been through a bunch of changes and to me, this is replacing a not highly used part of public land with something that's very special and something that Bowen Island can maybe offer to the community who was harmed or the people who were harmed in the past and the future generations, all those good things. And I think maybe in 20 years, it might be replaced with something a little different. Maybe there will be a new project that will come forward from the community. But I think it looks like it's a lasting project to me. And I'm prepared to take that risk. And I like the way that it doesn't seem to involve a parking lot. It's more about a pathway that will invite people. And it's got the accessible trail down path to a bench, which I think is a way that many people on Bowen haven't been able to experience Sandy Beach in the past, just because of the steepness of the trail that we were able to make back 30 years ago. And now this is a way for the use to be more accessible to more people on Bowen with this added relevant and meaningful. I think the idea of hope is wonderful, and I'm in support, so I'd like to move that council directs staff to approve the expanded scope of the Japanese-Canadian Memorial Project conceptual design as presented at the June 8th, 2026 regular council meeting.
Okay, moved by Councillor Fast, seconded by Councillor Getty. Any further discussion, debate on this? Councillor Getty.
Not really a debate. I mean, I really like I like the original. I like this design as well. And I like the idea of 3 interpretive signs. I think that the more the merrier. I think that it's important to get all of the detail, as much detail as possible. And I think, you know, in terms of setting up some sort of a cultural experience, having the screens in addition to the bench and the what is the smaller gateway will add to that. And I think that whole, it's not a totally immersive kind of feeling, but I think that I like the way this is going. I think I've always wanted to try the scorching and charring of the wood, the yakisugi, and that would give us another 20 years of life on the cedar. So I don't know if that's an extra expense that can be brought into the budget, but I think that if that's at all possible, that would be very interesting too, in terms of a technique.
We're looking at it being the bench built here on Bowen, and with that finish on Bowen. Maybe you'll get a chance.
Not during the summer drought, but some other time. Yes, thank you. I'm very excited about the project.
Okay, not seeing any further discussion or debate, I will call the question. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Aye, and that carries unanimously. Thank you to our manager. Thank you to BIMA and the other folks here. Very much appreciated your work and effort on this. Thank you. Looking at 8.2 on our agenda, revised municipal correspondence policy. We have Steph Short, our Deputy Corporate Officer, joining us here today.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I have a short presentation if you'd like me to share it. Okay, today I'll be talking about the revised municipal correspondence policy. Pursuant to BIM Policy Development and Approval Directive, policies are to be reviewed every 3 years. The revisions to this particular policy are responding to recent events. The presentation will look at a clarification of scope, administrative process, and conduct and identity. So the scope of this policy is incoming emails sent to, addressing incoming emails sent to mayor and council at bimbc.ca. Also to committee group email addresses, for example, epic at Yeah, NBC.ca. It does not also hand delivered or sent by mail addressed to the groups. It's not about individuals or little groups of individuals. It's just about those groups. Group emails and letters. There are several related documents such as communicating with the public, which is about outgoing correspondence, public participation, code of conduct, etc. So administrative process, the policy that's being revised stipulates that the corporate officer or designate is the one to respond to emails from the public. There is an automatic response. But if there is to be any additional response that comes from the corporate officer, this practice ensures transparency and equity. However, there are cases where if there's information or inflammatory potential and the writer needs some redirection, the mayor has been known to step in at that point. So the proposed revision is putting that current practice into policy. Section 1.5. The next one about operational emails, that is for the corporate officer to decide if something is operational, doesn't need to be brought up at the council table or and the corporate officer will respond with a CCing the relevant staff, for example, someone from Public Works or Parks or Finance, and say there'll be a 5-day response deadline. They'll be reminded that mayor and council have indeed read the email, but it won't be on a public agenda, differentiating that. And then at this point, it's up to the staff member to decide if the response will be CC'd to council. So in the report, I clarified that a pothole or garbage strewn, someone's written that to mayor and council, the response, we're not going to fill your inboxes with that. But if it's about an infrastructure project, maybe a big piece that council isn't really clear on, or may be asked questions about by members of the community, then staff will CC council on the response, is the proposal to council's discretion. Regarding conduct and identity, there is a section 3.7 talks about offensive conduct, or sorry, content. And again, this is up to the corporate officer, often in consultation with staff or others to decide whether something is felt to cross the line. But we're also including an additional phrase about targeting individuals. That was never clearly stated, but it does tend to occur. So we're making that really clear. That targeting individual is not appropriate. It will not be made public by us. The writer will be given the opportunity to revise their correspondence and one chance. We're gonna not follow around after that. And identity. So there was a stipulation in the existing policy saying that that we did allow anonymous correspondence. We're not going to do that anymore due to recent events about possible bot writing. And also there will be an opportunity for the corporate officer to follow up on the identity of somebody if they are named and there is an address and there's some uncertainty around the veracity of that claim. The corporate officer is empowered to follow up on that and not include it in the public package. Okay, and finally, I just want to do a little reminder, nothing has changed about the committee piece, but I have had to remind people about this. So it just for council's clarity, mayor and council, the council agenda is where public things should go. So if somebody is writing to a committee about an existing item that's up for discussion, then we'll put it on the committee agenda. If somebody is writing to a committee about random excellent thoughts that is not going to be considered on the agenda, the committee staff will reply saying, thank you, the committee has received your wisdom. And if you'd like it public, you're going to have to send it to mayor and council. So I just want to make sure you guys are clear on that. There was lack of clarity recently with the emergency program committee about what was to appear on the agenda and what wasn't. And ultimately it was explained that once it went to council and council referred it to the emergency program committee, we then included it. But emails that come to the emergency program committee but are not going to be a matter of discussion won't be. Simple concept, okay? I just put examples on the slide about like the transportation used to get a slew of emails. And, yeah. Staff recommends that you approve the revisions. And do you have any questions? Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Morse.
Can you just go back to the one the comment you just made about committees,
Mhm,
if I heard you correctly,
mhm,
you said a letter addressed to the committee
mhm.
will not be put on a committee agenda.
It's in the policy, has been for 5 years, that it will go on the committee agenda. If there is an item under discussion, I'll give you an example of when the porta potties were going on to Sandy Beach.
Yeah.
Were proposed, there were several emails addressed regarding that, so those were all put onto that agenda. But if people are writing to say they didn't like a dog off leash that they saw that day, we're not putting that on Parks and Trails agenda. Unless that's a topic of discussion.
Okay, but what if somebody has a question about general process or procedures or something that they think might be a good idea to address?
Well, then it's at the chair's discretion to make that an agenda item.
Okay, so
Yeah,
it's not,
absolutely.
if it's not an, okay.
Yeah, it just, it
Alright.
won't be public. It won't be published unless it is relevant to discussion.
Okay, so I have a few other questions. So going down to 2.2, it talks about a staff response within 5 business days. How do you know whether that staff has responded or not? I recall questions in the past coming back to council and saying, I still haven't heard from my letter too.
So, I mean, we don't want to wade too much into standard operating procedures in this, although we do a bit already, but I believe that the corporate officer would be CC'd on a staff response. And that there may be some tracking involved.
I can speak to that. We do rely on the staff member who's assigned the correspondence to respond within the 5 business days, and we reinforce that standard, in our day-to-day communication amongst each other.
Okay, so if they haven't responded within 5 days, then you don't follow up on the 6th day to say, where's your response?
That's not a current practice, no.
Yeah. But presumably the person who wrote will be coming back and saying, where's my answer?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. And then, just a minute here. So I guess we're talking, where appropriate, I guess that's a definitional thing. I'm looking at 1.5.
Right.
Yeah,
So through the mayor. Let the mayor speak to that.
1.5 doesn't, oh, I see.
Yeah.
It's where the mayor's deciding to respond.
Who determines where appropriate?
The corporate officer or the mayor.
Okay. What else did I? And then I guess I'm just curious on 4.2. To be in the late items agenda, correspondence must be received by 1 p.m. 3 calendar days prior to a meeting. So if they send it in on a Saturday when the meeting's a Tuesday, then it can't go on the late items agenda, but it would be a non-table item.
Yes, we would receive it as a non-table.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions, comments? Councilor Getty?
Okay, so this is the definition of correspondence in 1.1 is all incoming, and it's when it's addressed to mayor and council. And I couldn't find in any of the other policies with respect to other correspondence that and the other things that I've brought up in other meetings in terms of things that have gone out on letterhead that haven't shown up on a later agenda, either as correspondence or any other talking point. So is there a possibility of expanding the definition of the correspondence?
Through the mayor, the recent reply not being on the council agenda was a staff error due to being new to
Sorry,
that
say
particular
again?
task. The recent instance when the letter wasn't put on the agenda, the response on letterhead wasn't put on the agenda, was just a misstep, it's an oversight. And regarding outgoing correspondence, the communicating with the public policy is on a staff member's desk right now for review. So I believe that concerns about letterhead or any kind of content would be better placed in that policy as it's outgoing communication. And notes may be captured and referred to that policy.
All right, so that you're referring to the policy 0702, communicating with the public?
Yes.
All right. So, that basically has to do with outgoing correspondence. This is primarily to do with and limited to incoming
Handling
and
incoming,
emails
responding
addressed to
to-
mayor and council or possibly to specific committees. All right. All right, so then, assuming that, that is something that is coming before council, then, it would be more complicated to try to revise all the definitions and try to figure out how to remedy some of the other issues, with this policy then. This is only incoming. Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Although, yes, Councillor
Except for
Fast.
1.5.
Councillor Fast.
That's,
I'd just like to move the motion. I
Okay,
think they're good changes that refer to things that have come up in the last few years and makes it clearer in the digital age when who knows what's written in the letter. I move that council approve the revised municipal correspondence policy number 21-03 as presented at the June 8th, 2026 regular council meeting.
okay, moved by Councillor Fast. Seconded by Councillor Saunders. Any further discussion? Councillor Jurgensen, followed by Councillor Getty and Councillor Morse.
The question that has just occurred to me in light of Councillor Fast's comments regarding anonymity is I didn't see it in the current policy, but is there a pathway that we could enable that would allow somebody to write in as an identified individual, but ask that their name be redacted from the public issuance of their letter, especially if they provide a compelling reason to do so? I think of issues of retaliation and so forth.
Thank you, Councillor Jurgensen. I think that was a question. I'll look to staff for comment.
I would look to council for that discussion. That's a discussion point that
If I could say something, just regarding anonymous correspondence received, correspondence addressed to mayor and council and that goes on a public agenda is a part of the public record. And individuals who want to participate in that, I think, need to be aware that their information will become part of the public record. There have been instances where we've received emails that contain personal information that we decided was not appropriate for a public agenda, and therefore we discussed that with the person who wrote and redirected it. For example, like a bylaw issue or something, or public safety, where we have redirected it internally from being on a public agenda. So I think that is covered in the policy just around that redirection, whether it's operational or not.
I understand that and appreciate that when it comes to something that is operational in nature, but as a letter from the member of the public is the only way to get something onto a council agenda, which is the only way to then be able to publicly comment or have it otherwise discussed by council. I just don't know how something of a sensitive nature where somebody would have relied previously on anonymity to protect their identity while the municipality needs to know who has written it, there's the balance there. I'm still a little bit concerned.
Yep, thank you, Councillor Jurgensen. Councillor Getty, followed by Councillor Morris.
So, I think it's actually a question, the, 1.5, as council spokesperson, the mayor may, where appropriate, and there's no, description in terms of what where appropriate might mean, respond to correspondence on behalf of council. It seems to me that, the way I read this second sentence is where such correspondence appears in a public meeting agenda package, that's the triggering event. That's the only way that the mayor's response will also be published. So I would recommend an amendment then in terms of that the correspondence and the response should be published in a public meeting agenda package so that there's, a public record.
Sorry, I don't understand what
Can
the
I
amendment
ask
is.
a
Okay, so-
clarifying question to that?
Yep.
My understanding of 1.5 is, and maybe that needs, the mayor is responding where appropriate to correspondence addressed to mayor and council. It's not to any piece of correspondence.
That's correct. Yep.
So,
That is in scope.
Right?
yeah, so, and if the mayor responds, then that correspondence and the response will appear in the public agenda as well as the correspondence.
Yeah, as it also, as whenever I've replied to mayor and council emails, they get copied to everybody as well.
Yeah, so it's, I think the situation that has occurred in the past was a response to a piece of correspondence which was not addressed to mayor and council.
Correct, or
It's addressed
initiated in an outgoing capacity. I write dozens of emails a week that I don't publish en masse to council for very specific reasons and under very specific statute. If there's a desire to take up that conversation, I'm happy to have it.
Well,
But
that's a
right,
different policy. That's outgoing correspondence policy.
it would be an entirely separate policy. So there's the communication to the public policy, but there's lots of email that I communicate intergovernmentally or to other organizations or just in my role statutorily as chief executive of the municipality that a policy cannot overrule. Councillor Getty.
So without going too far afield, with respect to correspondence that comes in addressed to mayor and council, where the mayor decides and may, where appropriate, to respond to that, then there's nothing here that says that that correspondence to mayor and council, is it automatically become part of an agenda package because it's addressed to mayor and council? Seems to me that there's some hesitation there. Where such correspondence appears in a public meeting agenda, then the mayor's response will also be published.
I think there's, this term, there's been both cases where generally if it's a point of information or education or resource providing that would feel out of scope for staff to reply to. I've replied to it and it gets published on the agenda, and there's been other items that have been inflammatory or derogatory that I've made a comment on that haven't appeared on the agenda, where it's not, it wouldn't make sense for staff to take on that abuse or derogatory turn or tone, and so the mayor's dealt with it. Yes, Councillor Getty.
So this is saying correspondence on behalf of council, right? The mayor is responding to correspondence on behalf of council. And then the second sentence is fuzzier in terms of where such correspondence appears in a public meeting agenda package, assuming that there might be instances where it doesn't, and only where it does, then the mayor's response will also be published. So it seems to me that there's a gap there. If there's
Is there a specific
correspondence-
case or like what's the, I'm unclear as to the edge case that we're working through here. I see your hand, Councillor Jurgensen.
There's correspondence that goes out, there's correspondence that comes in addressed to mayor and council.
Mhm.
And then there's correspondence that goes out on behalf of council, a response that goes out on behalf of council. And then there's some hesitation in terms of whether or not the original letter and the response gets on an agenda.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, unless it's derogatory, inflammatory, any response that has been made to the mayor and council email that I've replied to has gone on a council agenda.
All right.
So
Well,
if there, yeah, so
that may be the practice. I'm just saying that this policy, it seems to me, has a gap. So take out where such correspondence shall appear in a public meeting pack and the mayor's response will also be published. If it's harassment and derogatory, that's another 5.7. So it's objectionable, it will be removed. If it targets specific individuals, the committee coordinator will determine whether communication is appropriate. That's the committee business, and then it's 3.7 for council. The writer will be invited to resubmit with objectionable content removed. Corporate officer will determine whether the communication is suitable for processing under this policy. If the writer doesn't respond or declines or the request to revise, no further acknowledgement will be provided and correspondence will not be included in a meeting agenda. So when it's derogatory and inflammatory and inappropriate and offensive and harassing, that's covered under 3.7 and 5.7. But if it's just general 1.5 incoming to mayor and council, it seems to me that that correspondence shall appear on a public meeting agenda package with the mayor's response so that it's on the record. And if that's the practice, then that's great. We can just put it as part of the policy.
yeah, what I would offer is I don't know if it can always be the practice. You know, there are a variety of edge cases that might involve FOIPA, that might involve legal privilege, that might involve a forwarding to staff and comments there. So without, you know, a better definition of what the edge case that we're trying to capture is, or like a specific naming of the gap, I'm curious what exactly the amendment sounds like.
So there's correspondence that comes into mayor and council.
Yeah.
Right? And there's some leeway in terms of where the mayor may, where appropriate, and there's no definition of that, respond to correspondence on behalf of council. How does council ever hear about it?
If it is not a public meeting agenda.
Sorry?
If it isn't if it doesn't get on a public meeting agenda, but we all got the letter in the first place,
Mhm.
how do we all know what the response was that
So-
the mayor made?
Yeah, I mean,
I can, through the mayor, we can amend this slightly to say the mayor may, where the mayor deems appropriate, respond to correspondence addressed to mayor and council on behalf of council, copying all of council.
Yeah.
I've made 3 minor amendments to that sentence, saying the mayor is the one deciding where it's appropriate to clarify that decision, clarify that it's addressed to the mayor and council email, and saying on behalf of council, copying in mayor and council.
And it seems to me that what you're talking about is potentially closed meeting material. So if there's something that comes in and the response is something that is covered by those exceptions, then that gets covered and you know, put onto a closed meeting agenda as some sort of correspondence or late item.
Right.
Through the
But I think if
mayor.
it's, you're speaking on behalf of council, it's come into mayor and council. If you're speaking on behalf of council, that there's got to be some record of it. And it sounds like
Right.
what you're saying is that that's the practice. But, you know, I think that there's,
I think
A gap
staff
in
has
the-
fixed it.
The section that follows, 1.5, is about the correspondence not included on public meeting agendas, which is operational or general correspondence. I gave a couple of examples in my presentation about potholes or garbage strewn around versus major projects. So I can't think of a specific example, maybe you guys can, but something that the mayor may have found he need to step in, but it's operational. It's not gonna go on a council agenda, but he's voiced something, some knowledge of Blue Water, I don't know.
Right, yeah, I mean, it's also conflated, right? Mayor and council are two separate entities. Council includes everybody and the mayor. If there's, you know, a desire to point to people that they can write the mayor separately, that's fine as well, as a separately elected official with authority that's vested directly by the electors. We could do that. If there's a desire that nobody responds except in a public meeting, I mean, that's also another way to do it. You know, at
Mayor
the,
and council email comes to all of it.
yeah. Right, but it's a council email. It's not, right? So mayor and council are two separate entities. The office of the mayor,
Council is a separate entity too.
yeah, but council is a body and the mayor is an office. Councillor Fast.
Thank you. I appreciate the gap that Councillor Getty has pointed out here. And as a member of council, I would want to see a response that had been provided to inflammatory or derogatory email that came in. And I would want partly just so I'm aware that it had been responded to, and partly so I know what it said, so we could beyond, there's a transparency thing here in that mail that comes to me as a member of council. I would want to see what the response was. So I appreciate the suggestions that you made. Those 3 changes to 1.5, I think would fit that. And I would be happy to move that the motion be amended by adding the words "as amended."
I haven't heard a succinct or clear definition of what the amendment is. So can we
Well,
hear
Steph
it
can
in
read it again.
context? Yeah.
I believe through the mayor, section 1.5, the mayor may decide. Sorry, the mayor may decide where appropriate, as one, respond to the correspondence addressed to mayor and council at BIMBC. Second, and then copying in mayor and council. Third amendment to the 1 sentence.
Sorry, can I hear that back again?
As council spokesperson, the mayor may decide if it is appropriate to respond to correspondence addressed to mayor and council. Copying in mayor and council on behalf of council.
Copying, not holding.
On behalf of council.
Right.
Copying in council.
Yeah, I mean, part of it, we might need to refer this back to staff to wordsmith it. So the existing, as it reads, 1.5 is as council spokesperson, which is defined in the community charter, the mayor may, where appropriate, respond to correspondence on behalf of council. And this is the key point, on behalf of council. So there's been suggestions made that there's only 2 categories of mayoral correspondence. 1 is on behalf of council and 2 is personal. When there's 3 layers, there's on behalf of council, there's the mayor in his individual professional capacity of the office, and third is as a private citizen. So this one here invokes that first role, responding to correspondence on behalf of council. And if I'm responding on behalf of council, I don't think there's any issue in copying that to a public meeting agenda. I think, you know, there might need to be some wording as if it's in private, or like if it's going to a closed meeting, and that can absolutely be copied to council. The other 2 categories of correspondence are out of scope of this policy and out of scope of any policy that exists that's subordinate to the community charter. Councillor Morse, followed by Councillor Getty.
5.7 says defamatory correspondence.
Yeah.
Or something that's not appropriate won't be included on the agenda. So if you respond to something that isn't appropriate, we want to know what you said to that person.
Sure, as long as it's, you know, if it's on behalf of council. So 1.5 as it reads could be, as council spokesperson, the mayor may respond, like strip out where appropriate, the mayor may respond to correspondence on behalf of council, which is an empowered duty of the community charter. And where such a
And we'll.
and,
copy
and
council.
and provide a copy of that correspondence on the appropriate meeting agenda package, which
No,
covers
the-
whether
the
open or closed.
defamatory stuff won't, or something that's attacking a person won't appear on a public agenda. So
Right,
how
but
do
it-
we
it
know
could-
what you said to them?
But it could appear on a closed agenda. Or it could simply be copied to council on email. So the issue is the public meeting agenda. And if council wishes to reconcile Councillor Morris's and Councillor Fast comments about, we should be hearing about it versus it shouldn't be on a public meeting agenda, I'm all for that wording. Councillor Fast.
I wonder if, and I appreciate your edit of, I just wrote a strikeout through where appropriate. And I wonder if where such correspondence appears in a public agenda, the mayor's response will be also published, and then comma, where such correspondence does not appear in a public meeting agenda, mayor and council or council will be copied.
Right.
And then it leaves it up to you whether you put it in a closed meeting agenda or through email as probably it arrives. That's my suggestion.
Or just such correspondence will be copied to council and included where appropriate in a public meeting agenda.
You're putting where appropriate.
I think in practice, it's.
So it's council gets copied on everything,
Yeah.
but where appropriate, it gets published on a meeting agenda.
Mhm.
So it's reversing it. It's not saying that councils may not be copied on something. It's council always gets copied
Mhm.
on correspondence that's
Right,
that's
okay.
on behalf of council.
Because the words copying back to council are in there now. Is that correct?
I don't believe that.
No, they're not. So such correspondence will be copied to council and where appropriate, published in a public meeting agenda package.
Okay, good. So will be copied to council.
Is there any way of putting the revised section up on the screen?
Who's clerking this meeting? Okay. Where? Where?
Councillor Saunders.
Thanks, the mayor. Just as a matter of interest, has there ever been an occasion where there was an email or correspondence of a derogatory or threatening or harassing nature that we did not become aware of a response?
I can't think of a specific example.
That's what I thought.
Neither can I, but I feel like there's one out there or even operational.
Yeah, I think there's been one out there, although there certainly have been some exceptions raised to individual correspondence that I've been making as the mayor, which is, I think, why we're into this point right now.
Okay, thanks.
Well,
Councillor Fast.
well, staff is working on that. I noted, maybe I got this down wrong, but I wrote down, the mayor says he writes dozens of emails that come to us on council.
No, I write dozens of emails throughout the course of my week that don't come to council, that are just a part of my regular office and professional work.
Okay, but they wouldn't come to, they're not coming to mayor and council?
No, that are coming to my personal email or communications initiated by me, similar to any
Thank
other
you.
counselor using their own BIM email address.
Right.
Those aren't published on agendas either.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Councillor Jurgensen.
Just for the public who is hearing this discussion, just to clarify, those are emails not on behalf of council, but on behalf of the mayor's office or your own personal self. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah. And whether they are on letterhead or signed by email signature, they are clearly stated that they're coming from myself individually as the mayor.
Thank you.
Okay.
And as to my earlier question, it was covered by the deputy corporate officer's amendments, which are being incorporated.
Okay.
Okay.
So you're leaving the original bit as is?
Yeah, so where, just clear this out. So for the sake of folks in the room and Councillor Jurgensen. So as council spokesperson, the mayor may respond to correspondence on behalf of council, and then that next line should be stricken. And then replaced with such correspondence will be copied to council, and where appropriate, both the original email and the response will be included on a public agenda.
That looks good to me. And so can I move an amendment to the original motion?
Yes,
So that at the very end of it, it has a comma as amended.
okay. So I believe that's been moved and seconded.
Believe so.
Oh, Don Saunders was the seconder originally.
Okay. Any objection to that amendment? Just covering our bases, so that will be covered by unanimous consent. And now back to the main motion. Any further discussion, debate? I will call the question. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Can I
Thank you.
ask that the revised policy be sent out, emailed to us?
Sure.
Thank you. Then I don't have to remember to go and look for it.
Okay, moving on to 8.3, donor-funded naming policy. Over to Kristen Watson, our acting CAO.
Thank you. Through the mayor, we have coincidentally, as the same timing of these policies coming forward, we've got several requests from the public to name public assets on behalf of individuals. The trigger for this policy was a request that has come forward in regards to the artificial turf field. Looking at the policies that we do have, we are aware that they didn't have the tools to properly handle the request. So we decided as staff that we would look at revising our municipal donor naming policy. And very early into that process, we realized that we actually very much need two separate policies. One to deal with specific donor funded naming requests. So that's a naming request that's being made on behalf of a person, an individual, an organization, perhaps a corporate sponsorship, but something that's coming with a donation attached to it, versus one that will deal with a name that we want to consider for honoring an individual. So the first policy in front of you today is the donor funded naming policy. Now, this one is important for municipalities, small municipalities such as ours as well, because with limited property taxation tax base and very few alternative revenue tools, many municipalities today are turning towards donor funded naming as an opportunity to generate revenue outside of the traditional methods. So one of the few available opportunities to municipalities in order to support either the construction or the ongoing maintenance or replacement of assets is to provide an opportunity to provide it as a fundraising opportunity with a naming opportunity for financial purposes. Now, these opportunities, being a small municipality like us with very limited assets, they don't come along very often. So approaching these opportunities is required that it be done with due care and diligence and reflection. Public assets should absolutely remain public, and an over reliance on donor naming for financial purposes, it risks diminishing the credibility, the perceived neutrality of the municipality. So the policy as presented, it establishes a really clear principle. It establishes eligibility criteria, contribution expectations, and an approval process. And it requires that all naming arrangements have a very clear agreement that is formalized to define the terms, to define the duration, define any responsibilities of the donors, and as well as it establishes in many cases, there would be a time limit to a donor-funded agreement. And as well, under what circumstances would that donor name potentially be revoked? So all of these things would need to be set out in a very clear naming agreement. Again, a key focus of a donor-funded naming agreement is to ensure that the public spaces are protected as community-held assets and making sure that any donor recognition doesn't result in like a commercialization of that space or the perception of the space becoming privatized. So signage and recognition is all going to have to be considered and be tasteful and not overwhelm the public space. I think overall, the first draft of this policy, it provides a balanced and a defensible framework for council to consider in the future any potential donor-funded naming requests that it may be presented with, and allows us to ensure that these assets are managed responsibly, both for generations now and generations in the future. So the first policy, the donor-funded naming one, there's two recommendations that come with this report. One is that the policy be approved, that council approve the draft donor-funded naming policy number 2603. And second, that the council rescind Bowen Island Community Center donor recognition naming policy 18003. And the donor-funded, the Bowen Island Community Center donor recognition naming policy was a policy that was developed as the decision to build the community center was made, knowing that there potentially could be some opportunities for room naming or public space naming. It is limited just to this site. So it is now, should council approve the donor funded naming policy, it's more comprehensive and it includes all assets throughout the municipality, whereas this one's just limited to this space and it would become redundant. So council could and should rescind this community center policy 18003.
Councillor Saunders, followed by Councillor Fest.
Thank you through the chair. I'm in general, I support what you're doing here. I just got a clarification question in part for the use of funds. There's bullet points on how it gets used. I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but that doesn't mean that those funds have to go to that specific asset. It's sort of a general pool of capital construction, long-term maintenance for all assets. Is that correct? Or is it specific to the asset that the donation came to?
I think the link should be there. It does say just long-term maintenance or renewal of public assets, but ideally you'd want that linkage to be there, that the money raised in specific for this asset be used to maintain it.
To follow up, and you know, when I look at Schedule A, it was when you're looking at like 20 to 50% of the construction costs sort of thing. If the money has already been raised otherwise through grants or tax allocation or something on those lines to build this structure, whatever it is, then you're gonna have 25 to 50% more of it. If it was $100,000 item, you've got a $30,000 check and you've already built it. What are we gonna do with the $30,000 check sort of thing?
I think that's why the policy does just leave it general as assets. It gives you flexibility. I do think ideally you're not selling off your existing assets as a fundraising initiative to just try and generate money that you can use for other things.
Right.
I think your best practice is, here's an asset we'd like to have. We don't have the money to do it. This donor stepped in and they're coming forward with some money and it's gonna help us get over and I think ideally that is how a council would want to use its donor funded naming policy. But who knows what happens in the future?
I think you're absolutely right that that's the right way to approach it. What I'm thinking though is somebody comes up and says, I'd like my name on that building that's already built.
Yeah.
And you guys have already financed it. I'd
Yeah.
love to have my name on that and here's
Yeah.
$100,000.
Yeah.
So there is the flexibility to say, great, we'll put your name up, we're gonna spend it on something else.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to
There
go
is
into
the
that bill.
there is
Okay.
the flexibility in this policy
that's-
to do that.
That's great, thank you.
It comes with that.
Yeah.
Sense of selling assets for
Yeah,
for sale, assets for sale.
thank you.
Councillor Fest.
Thank you. I'm also looking at Schedule A, which page 75, and I see benches are on there. And this is partly because I'm glad you're still here, Carla. Because we did develop through the a committee, a bench donation policy and bench naming. And is this fit in that the line about memorial benches, $5,000 for the operational life of the bench? Is that fit with that policy, or does that policy need to get woven in?
Policy 2401.
Yeah.
Through the chair, I have reviewed this draft policy and I did believe that it was in line with it. I don't recall that specific part about $5,000. What I do recall is that within the bench policy and was that the person who was donating the bench is responsible for the cost of the bench is its cost installation as well as purchase of the bench.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to check. And the second thing, if I may, I'm also wondering under asset type in that little table on page 75, Schedule A, whether we should put signs. Because I'm recalling, I think we have some signs that are still out there, and at the bottom of them, it's about trails or parks or something. And at the bottom of them, one of the logos on it is Cranimals, which is a company that donated towards these signs, which I can't remember what they are. And but I'm just wondering whether donation of signs, for example, the interpretive signs that were some kind of interpretive signs, or these other signs, which were some kind of safety donation signs, as I recall, whether they should be on here to make it clear that people couldn't expect that their company logo appear on a public sign, you know? So I don't know exactly how that would, let me think about it for a minute. You haven't thought about signs on here. Do you know what I'm thinking about, Carla?
Through the chair, I would, in my recollection, I don't recall any companies having signs. I don't know the Cranimals example, but I would say that we do have some exceptions. For example, the West Side Playground has a sign thanking all of the sponsors, where we do have logos on a small sign with a whole bunch of logos, and then some grant funded projects, such as those funded by the Community Foundation, have little plaques below, for example, interpretive signs that were installed in Courtney Park and Headwaters Park. So those are just some of the examples, but otherwise, I don't believe we've ever been approached with,
Yeah.
individuals or businesses that wanted to purchase signs. We are also kind of wary of adding any additional signage to parks because we have a lot.
Yeah,
So,
these were,
and they're not very expensive. So we don't interpretive signages, but in general, signage for parks.
that's why I had been surprised back in the day. It may have been a while ago, but these signs kind of, a well-meaning donation towards putting up these signs, whatever they were.
Fire smart.
Fire Smart, that's it.
think, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And they had, I think there were two logos on the bottom, and one of them was a company logo. So I wonder if, in terms of plaques, signs, sometimes people want memorial plaques. I've had to, anyway, other projects in other places, sometimes they're scattered around and you have to corral them and put them all in one place. Whether staff for the next go round, I'm not proposing that it be on here, but just keep an eye out for that idea of signs, because I don't think we need to deal with it now, because you don't remember, and obviously it doesn't happen that often. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Getty, followed by Councilor Jurgensen.
So paragraph 8 of the policy talks about signage and recognition standards and says that it's consistent with municipal design guidelines and bylaws. But my question, with respect to the policy about the naming for the community center, my recollection is that we didn't get any donations for the naming opportunities for that. And I remember the discussions at the time, possibly through the Arts Council, maybe with Theatre on the Isle, was that they were very, very high. And it was certainly impossible for that organization to, even contemplate the tiniest little room having a naming opportunity. I think it was, the tech booth was something like $50,000 or something that was unattainable. So while if this is a valid form of income and it's something that we would like to pursue, then I think we really need to be spend more time on this Schedule A in terms of, a public use building, if it's the whole of the community center, 25% of construction or replacement costs would be what, 5 million? Right? So I don't know that, is that realistic in terms of, wouldn't it be wonderful if somebody came along and had that kind of money that wanted to spend it on this? But, if maybe that's a bad example, and maybe there's smaller ones that, the skate park and things like that. If we really do want to encourage this form of fundraising with all of the controls around it in terms of publicity and ownership and, sharing and all the rest of it, then I think we need to be very realistic about the minimum amounts or have some wiggle room in terms of, such other criteria that become available or decision of council or something like that. Because it's all very nice to have a policy, but if it's not attainable, then it's no help.
Through the chair to Councillor Getty, I would agree with you on that point. I think we got to find the right balance between undervaluing our assets and being left with honorary names, not honorary names, but sponsored names everywhere we go, and making it a threshold enough that it's going to really be for that extraordinary donation that that comes through as a sponsorship or a philanthropic donation. This is a starting point. This is a schedule that I have put together. Doesn't mean that it can't be reviewed and that it can't be adjusted up or down. In the meantime, we don't have any people banging on our door begging to give us money so they can put their name on anything. The other side of that certainly is that it's not like any of those requests ever come through a standard form that's available on the municipal website. Those are conversations that are had quietly in the background, either through an elected official or senior staff, that somebody potentially would indicate their interest in doing that. And they then would obviously become a very quiet conversation in the background while this was being developed, while the concept was being developed, and would be brought forward as hey, council, would you be interested in considering this request? We've had this request. And I think that at that point, when you're talking of that size of a donation, there's certainly some flexibility in what council would likely be willing to consider up or down for. It all depends on just what that asset is. And I think it's a starting point, but certainly I do believe that council would be willing to consider other amounts if there was a very.
Okay, if I may, if I can suggest then that we add some wording to paragraph number 3, so that the minimum financial contribution required for donor funding naming rights shall be determined based on 4 bullet points, comma, and such other criteria that may be considered appropriate by council, so that there's some wiggle room.
This would be in 2?
Sorry,
Where would the 4th?
after the 4th bullet point.
Okay,
In 3.
in 3, thank you.
So what do you want to put after the 4th bullet point?
Or such other considerations council may consider appropriate. Not the same words.
I said
or such other criteria,
Yeah.
as determined by council.
Over to you, Councillor Jurgensen.
Just a question about whether or not time-limited opportunities have been considered, especially for some of the bigger assets. If there's that impression that we can, I think, as you said it earlier, sell off assets, should there be some opportunities that for some of the bigger assets to be time-limited? So that they're done for a set period of time of a naming right. Not sure if I'm making sense or not, but I'm thinking, along the lines of if somebody was to come and want to put their name on the community center, whether we would accept a donation for a period of, 10, 15 years of that sponsorship.
Through the mayor to Councillor Jurgensen, that is contemplated in section 7 of the policy under the naming rights agreement, that all agreements would include a term of the agreement and duration of the naming rights. So there would always be a defined term
Okay, thank
for
you.
any donor funded sponsorship.
More detail.
Okay.
Lots more detail in 5.
Oh, yeah, there's a section.
Just some thoughts, some questions I had around the donor fund. So we're doing donor funded right now. Is the whether it might be wise to differentiate charitable or corporate versus individual donors, particularly for charitable receiving purposes, as I believe that a corporate donor has different obligations as it's considered sponsorship, and there might be split receipting and GST implications on that. Would be a consideration that I've run into in the nonprofit world. In that it's not from corporate donors, it's not always considered a gift or a straight up donation. It's done in exchange for recognition. The schedule, when I look at the schedule, we've got some pieces in there like 250,000 to 500,000 or 50% of the cost of construction. Curious whether we should specify whether it's the lesser or greater or up to staff discretion on those figures. And then so there's the ask to rescind, and this is one I'd like some feedback on, so that Council rescind Bowen Island Community Center donor recognition and naming policy number 18003. I'm curious, is there a clause in here anywhere that deals with continuing the existing recognition agreements so that we're not sort of,
I don't think there are any.
there's no agreements in there already?
No, never have.
No, there's just the big donor.
Just our
recognition.
donor wall.
Just our donor wall? Okay,
Yeah.
great. Use of funds, other uses is determined by council. I think that's an interesting one that I go back and forth on. And, I believe that donors, they might come to us with the ask that their donation be restricted to the specific purpose, which is very common in the nonprofit world, where I'm going to donate this asset or money and we would like it used for this specific purpose. So I wonder if that would need to be explicitly spelled out in the policy.
I believe that's happened twice.
Has it?
So it's
Yeah.
the tech room and I think the gym equipment.
And I don't think it's out of the scope of this policy as worded, or maybe it just needs to become a bit more, surface it a bit more, that, in that section 4, the use of funds received through naming agreements may be used for, and it's sort of covered in those first few bullet points, but maybe something explicit that says, funds may be restricted, depending on the agreement reached between the donor, funds may be restricted to that specific project at the donor's request and to the acceptability of the municipality or council or something like that. I do like the duration of naming rights. I've never noticed the Cranimals naming right, but I don't know if that expires after 10 years or it's still going to be here when my great-great-grandchildren are walking the island and Cranimals is long gone. But having some sort of register of the naming rights that's checked up on and that we track, I think is certainly valuable. And that's all the feedback I have.
I've got one more.
Okay.
On your use of funds, you're talking about capital construction of new or improvements. There's nothing there for the purchase of assets, like purchasing equipment or something like that.
No, that could be added. Acquisition of equipment.
Or acquisition of assets or. I mean, somebody could. We wanted a piece of parkland or something, somebody could pay to acquire that.
Oh, land too.
Yeah, so it could be land or equipment.
I was just interested in any responses to the mayor's.
Yeah, I wanted to query, you made a comment regarding the differentiation between corporate versus individual. I wanted to get a bit more information about that. Was that about whether the municipality would be issuing a tax receipt for that? Or?
Yes, either for the individual or corporate funded donors who look for naming rights, and whether we're receiving that as a donation that gets tax receivable, and then in particular for corporate donors, because I believe there's different rules from the CRA around how those would get
They
tax
treat it as a
receipted.
public relations expense.
Yeah,
It's
and I
simply
think I think it's
reduction of their taxable income.
yeah.
So typically, income tax receipts are a concept for an individual to have and use on their personal tax return. And corporate sponsorships are typically just an advertising expense that they write off against taxable income. So I don't know that we need to address that in the policy anywhere. It would be the tax treatment of the donor and whether or not they would require the tax receipt. The piece that is important for us and that we do have to differentiate is in the case of an individual and they do wish to have a tax receipt for that, we need to ensure that there is either is or is not, and if there is, we need to determine what the value of the naming benefit is ascribed to that donation and reduce that from the amount of the income tax receipt that's issued. So that is a piece that would apply in the case where a tax receipt was issued. But that is just a matter of the municipality complying with income tax legislation and that we would otherwise have to do.
Okay.
Then. Then, to the mayor, comments regarding, again, on the Schedule A, you made, where there is an option, say, a sliding scale of a percentage or a sliding scale of a dollar value. I think I just put that in there because you just don't know what may be a better match in order to make a judgment call about what would be a proportional gift in order to meet that threshold. I think I put it in there just to, again, keep some flexibility in here. This is really new and we haven't used it before. I think we just need to have something to work with, and if it's not working, then be flexible about administering it and treat it, again, these are donor funded contributions. They don't come to us and it's an all or nothing. They typically have some negotiation that goes on in the background and some conversations before they're finalized. And I think we should have a starting point and see if it works or it's too high or work with it and give it a shot.
Okay. Oh, lots. Councillor Fast, Getty and Morse.
Thank you. I like that approach, and that's why I was proposing, let's see whether signs need to be added here or next time around we can add them. I like the philanthropic kind of tone of your report in terms of helping people make a contribution back to their community. And I like the idea of, let's, pass this if it's appropriate to do it today and get some, experience with it and then revise it later, like, let's get going with it. I think that's good. Over.
Councillor Getty, followed by Councillor Morse.
I think with respect to the tax question, that could be part of the section 7 naming rights agreement. So all agreements shall be in writing and must include, and another bullet point would be appropriate tax considerations, so that it is considered as part of the agreement and it comes, people think about it and talk about it. And in the appendix or Schedule A, under outdoor recreational space and field and room in a building interior space, there's the second column, typical naming terms would include no perpetual naming. And I wonder if at this point we want to be held to that. I'm just thinking of the library annex where it's the Annie
Laurie?
Laurie, and there's
Wood?
a story, right? And that's part of the interest in terms of all the background and heritage and, you know, putting a story to something so that, you know, Annie Laurie is one of the original settlers and she was, you know, there's pictures of her in a horse-drawn team.
That's more like 8.4.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, but it's in the schedule as no perpetual naming, and I think that might be putting us into too
Isn't that-
rigid a position.
Isn't that under A, if you're talking about the annex, it fits under 15 to 25 years perpetual only for exceptional contributions, the very first line.
Okay. So there may be exceptional contributions, there may be other terms, and in the schedule, it says none. So I'm suggesting that we take the no perpetual namings out of the schedule. There's other
Through the
policies
mayor, again, I don't want to conflate the donor funded naming with the honorary naming where you're not gonna be pulling back a name that you've gifted and this is more of it's a business proposal.
Yep.
And I do recommend that we keep them time limited and provide that opportunity for the next generation to have that same opportunity.
That's all fine, and that's all part of the other policies,
Yeah.
and there's lots of flexibility, but on the schedule, it says none.
Yeah,
So I'm suggesting that we take that out and we work with the other policies that are in the body of the text.
You looking at Schedule A? you mean?
Yep,
The place is, oh, I see, typical naming term.
10 to 20 years, no perpetual naming, 10 to 20 years, no perpetual naming,
Mhm.
under the fourth and third from the bottom. So I would just be removing that phrase, and the general process is that it's not perpetual unless there's exceptional circumstances. And just leave it at that in terms of the policies.
Councillor Morse.
I can't remember what I was gonna ask now. Oh, I know. You've got the memorial bench line, but we have a policy for memorial benches. So should there not be a cross-reference to that
yes,
policy?
I could add that. I'm looking at that policy right now.
2401, I think it should stay as it is, because it's very detailed, it's good.
Yeah.
But, so just add it,
In the policy.
in the other considerations, just refer to policy 2401.
Ready for a motion?
Not quite. I do have one more question, just that strikes me around the nomination process. So in the nomination process, we have a submission of any resident, community organization, or council member may submit a nomination by providing a written request to council that includes the following documentation: biography, description, clear explanation, evidence of community support. Then we do an initial review. And I think this applies to both of the policies we're looking at today.
Mhm.
I'm curious if there's any FOIPA implications in the initial review, as it feels a little bit like we're doing an investigation into an individual. And I'm curious if there's a duty to notify or how that's handled, since we're sort of initiating a search on an individual that's come to us through a nomination process.
That's a good question. It will certainly wouldn't hurt to disclose that the municipality will undertake a cursory review of all publicly available information to ensure that everything that we find aligns with municipal values. That's easy to do. Include it. It's not an application form, but include it, embed it within the policy.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because and it just occurs to me because that with the Islands Trust Stewardship Awards, there's a duty to notify the entity that's being,
Not only that, you have to get the
No.
consent.
yeah, yeah.
Where are you reading
Nomination
that?
process in here.
Yeah, I see it in,
It's in the honorary.
what's in the honorary, but not in the,
Okay.
But still, you might do that if you had an extraordinary offer come in.
And the policy does set out that with a donor funded naming request, we would go through that
Yeah.
process. So
Yeah.
Yep.
the duty to inform the person that we will be undertaking that process, I think is a good point.
okay, so lots of feedback here. Sounds like there might be some changes
Yep.
coming to this, so maybe a motion to refer back to staff.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Morse, seconded by Councillor Wake. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
I,
Uh, And so we'll move on to 8.4, which is the honorary naming policy number 2604. Back over to staff.
Thank you. So as discussed, this is the second of two policies, which this one is the honorary naming policy, which confers names in recognition of individuals without any financial contribution. So from time to time, 3 times this month, the municipality has received requests to name municipal assets such as parks and trails and rooms within a community center in honor of individuals. So the municipality does have an existing naming policy, which is policy 19-03. And this is the policy that we found that it did not provide a sufficiently strong or clear framework or process for council to consider making these types of decisions. So for that reason, this is the draft policy that's before you today. This new policy, it emphasizes that council chooses that place-based names should be the priority. These names, naming assets after a place-based item, so the natural environment or local history and culture, or Indigenous naming as part of reconciliation initiatives, that they tend to represent the broader community. And as well, they should be included as a way of advancing reconciliation initiatives, which is one of council's strategic priorities with Indigenous naming. So as a result, these names stand the test of time. They will continue to reflect the values and the community's identity in perpetuity. That being said, we do have occasions where council may wish to name an asset in honor of an individual where that individual has made a significant service, contribution to service, or taken a strong leadership role in the community, has completed a notable achievement of some sort, or a significant philanthropic gift. In those cases, it's important that council has a pathway or has a framework in front of them in order to guide the decision-making process around honorary naming. So this policy has been developed to provide council with that framework. And it sets out several things. It sets out a clear eligibility criteria for honorary naming. It sets out a defined nomination and approval process. And it also requires that a formal naming agreement be put into place as well. So this agreement, the naming agreement, would outline the things similar to the donor funded. It would have terms and conditions. It would set out the cost responsibilities, who should pay for the signage and the upkeep and maintenance of that signage, and also identifies circumstances which would trigger the revocation of an honorary name. The policy also addresses the duration of name, whether you wanted to name that asset in perpetuity or for a fixed term. And if it was for a fixed term, what happens at the end of that term? Also opens the door to the possibility of renaming an asset in future, again, to provide that opportunity for future generations. So it's tricky. It's tricky. Honorary naming, the requests are typically coming from, a place of deep sadness or grief following the loss of a loved one, with family members understandably very invested in the decision-making process and that name. But to support the objective decision-making of the council, try to create a bit of separation there. The policy does recommend that honorary naming take place only in the case of deceased persons, and that a period of 3 to 5 years has elapsed before those decisions are made. This will allow time for the immediate urgency of the emotional decision to subside, and helping to ensure that these decisions are made thoughtfully and consistently for the good of the long term. The policy also affirms council's discretion in responding to that request. It establishes the fact that council may respectfully decide to decline a proposal without any kind of obligation. It allows council to perhaps suggest an alternative form of recognition that it feels may be more appropriate. And there's one last consideration that's not really stated clearly in this policy, but through some of the conversations today, I think it is an important add, and it should be added, as I think it's an oversight that it was left out. But I think honorary naming considerations when we're talking of the deceased, I believe that they should always be made with the support of the family or the next of kin. And so I see that that's something that should be added under point 3 on the second page of this policy. That a last point, evidence of family or next of kin and community support, I think should be added. That's it. I turn it to council to consider and discuss, please.
Okay. Councillor Fast.
Well, I'll lead off just by saying I hadn't noticed anything specific. That's great that you've picked up the support of family and next of kin consideration. I really like that it's focused on place-based naming, because that's the whole helping the community connect better. That whole sense of place feature is even something that's used in education, and I like the principles. The guiding principles being there is nice and clear, names the principles, which I think is important in a long-running, hopefully, policy like this. So that's all I have to offer at this point. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Morse.
Oh, I'm not quite sure how the plaque that Paul Houston was suggesting for Ian Davidson, it's an appreciation for service. It's not a naming opportunity. That's not a, we're not naming the tech booth after him.
Hmm.
But I think the idea of saying thank you to somebody for all you contributed to this
Mm.
is a really good idea. I've been involved in other things where I think the committee that organized it or whatever got recognized as part of the opening plaque or something. So, I'm just not sure that that's actually picked up in here as more of a thank you for the work you've done, which also fits with what was out at West Side Placegate, where those people's names were listed as, you know.
I see your hand, Councillor Jurgensen. Not recognizing it, I was,
Oh,
yeah,
Just letting him know that.
just letting him know so
up.
his arm
Thank
doesn't
you.
get tired.
Through the mayor to Councillor Morse, I don't see that naming or putting up an honorary nameplate is not addressed in this policy. A request such as that, I think, should still go through some level of due
Oh,
diligence
Yeah,
from a
no, I'm
staff.
not objecting to that. To
Okay.
me, what the policy is saying is you're gonna name the tech room after that person. It's a
Mm.
naming agreement, so the tech room would be named the Ian Davidson Tech Room.
Mhm.
But what Paul is wanting is a recognition of appreciation, which is a plaque, which to me is a totally different
Mhm.
thing. And I have no problem with it, but I'm wondering if this policy should also
So include
something in here
extra-
about
an extra point to deal with
recognizing
recognition.
Yeah.
recognition,
Recognition, yeah, I see what
contributions,
you're
yeah.
saying.
Councillor Jurgensen, over to you.
Thank you. Through the chair to the acting corporate office, acting CAO. I agree with Councillor Morse that it may not be the same as what's already in here. But I disagree on the implementation because if we go with an, follow the whole of this policy, that would also preclude any plaque of appreciation made to any person who is not yet deceased. And I wonder whether putting it in, shoehorning it into this policy makes the most sense, or whether another smaller policy. Because I agree process is needed around these three items, this one, the donor recognition and the honoring, honoring name recognition, and whether we need a third one to complete that set. Or whether it, is best served by making a statement within this one that lists it as an exception to the posthumous requirement.
Is posthumous required?
It is strongly encouraged, and there is a statement said in certain exceptional cases, council may consider naming it after a individual who's still alive.
The only comments I have on this one, first is around the FOIPA consideration again, and then second is around the nomination process here. Which may need a bit of an expansion, given that we're looking at place-based naming and in particular, Indigenous inclusion and cultural and natural heritage recognition. The nomination process, so that's like a place-based or group-based kind of process, but the nomination process here really reflects naming for an individual. And I'm curious whether it should be fleshed out with how we would engage with a First Nation or a group, or bring forward a place-based name versus just an individual name. As I think the guiding principles are stated really well, but how we're enacting them in the nomination process currently in this draft might work against us as a reconciliation effort. And the last one piece that makes me a little uneasy is on the revocation. And this is specific to this policy, the honorary naming policy, which again is designed to be place-based or recognized generally posthumous service. Is at the end, this fourth point of council decides, so revocation, if council decides that a different name better reflects municipal priorities, community values, or strategic direction, that feels slightly broad to me and might need to be more narrowly scoped. That, you know, I totally agree if there's you know, new information that arises that you know, points to misconduct or harm to the community as a result of the nominee, or that it doesn't reflect community values or causes public concern, or that, you know, just straight up operation or planning needs require renaming. But a council decides because strategic direction has changed, introduces like a possibility for politicization that works against the actual like place and
Goal or
cultural,
principle, yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Councillor Fast.
Since I already spoke out of turn, I agree with, I'd like to strike that fourth bullet there under revocation, because it implies that if you get a completely different council elected, then they could just strip names that they didn't like. So I see the CFO has her hand up.
Through the mayor, my question is that concern not adequately addressed with the phrase, a review process, including public consultation and notification? Oh, it says should precede any renaming decision. So you're not doing it willy-nilly, you're going to the public, you're suggesting that, hey, this name is no longer appropriate, not for one of these reasons, but for this reason, we want to name it. What do you think? Is that not adequate safeguards against that?
Yeah, just to speak to the comment, I think, you know, I think at the end of the day, it's policy, it's not a bylaw. Council can do whatever it likes. But I would, you know, so if they really want to, like if a future council really wants to change something, they'll just do it. But that said, I think it would be strengthened by changing should to will or shall.
But isn't it already, the second bullet already gives any council that opportunity to change it? If we leave the second bullet as is, do we need the fifth one?
I'm not sure, or yeah, I don't feel capable of wordsmithing it.
No, I was just over to the CFO.
I do agree, though. I think it's similar in vein.
Yeah.
Can we do a straw poll? Take it out or leave it in?
Yeah, I'm not sure if a straw, you know, I assume that this one is also going to be referred back to staff. But it doesn't seem like anyone's speaking out against the notion that we should avoid politicization, like, you know, strengthen the anti-politicization of honorary naming. And, you know, also curious whether it should happen at the staff or council level. You know, I don't know if council agendas need to come back and have consultation and notifications that we're changing the name of a bench or, you know, retiring a sign. Like some of that feels more operational. Councillor Getty.
Yeah, I think that particularly when there's a person involved, possibly an organization that has been honored in some way. I think that you know, the first three bullets under revocation cover most situations that I can think of, but I think that depending on, you know, all the different vagaries, I suppose, of elections and who shows up on council, that if, you know, the better reflecting municipal priorities and community values and strategic direction, that is, I think that we get ourselves potentially into, with that particular phrase, I'd like to have it struck, because I think with it in there, we potentially get into discussions that could be divisive, could be negative and potentially harmful. And I think that, you know, it does politicize things. And I think that what we're trying to do is figure out how to honor and all of these other criteria in terms of, you know, the public interest, cultural and natural, Indigenous inclusion, honorary naming. We get into, you know, significant contributions that as time passes, I think that I wouldn't want to encourage those kinds of conversations, I don't think. So the other things for revocation, new information emerges that contradicts the eligibility, name no longer reflects community values or causes significant public concern, or operational planning such as redevelopment or destruction, disposal of assets. I think that covers pretty well all of what you could expect. And then if the review process, you're not getting into individual loyalties or friends and neighbors and, you know, people's recollections. If it's not something that is contradicting the eligibility and no longer reflecting community values or causing significant public concerns, I think that's plenty of grounds. And it sort of is an overlap and fits, is in some ways duplication in terms of municipal priorities and strategic direction. But I agree with your original comment in terms of that just feels more politically oriented that I would like to pull out of this process. No.
Over to the acting CEO.
Thank you, through the mayor. So I have one more thought on this. You mentioned that there needed to be some reconciliation about the priorities and how that fit into the donor recognition. I struggled with that too when I was drafting it. I changed the name initially to a naming policy, and then I said, no, this is just about donor naming. I switched back. I think that actually fits with what Councillor Jurgensen said, that maybe we do actually need a third policy. So I'm going to suggest perhaps that I work on a third policy as well, strip out the priority, how the names are chosen in what priority, and just leave the bare bones. If council makes a choice to go donor or honorary naming, here's the process and here's the policy that covers that, and not try and mix the two. And in that third one could also be the piece that Councillor Morse raised around naming and recognition. Just recognition would sit in that policy as well. So I think I have it worked out in my head what actually might make more sense.
So I'll move that we refer back to staff.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Just that I like that idea of having a recognition policy. And if you just leave it broad like that, it's not municipal volunteer policy, it's community recognition wide, and that leaves it open for plaques such as been proposed, but also like the other little signs and photos and things that I see on the fire hall, for example, walls, and other not that we want to get into all that, but in case there's some that people want permanent. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And with that,
one
I will,
more.
Don't you remember? Sorry.
yes.
And then just regarding the review process, I'm down at the bottom of 7 again. Including public consultation and notification should precede any renaming decision. Some of them have terms like the benches. And do you need to have a public consultation before any? Or do you want to say most, or do you want to say significant? Just another thought there. Or maybe the review process is just a staff one. Anyway.
Revocation is a specific thing. Something's happened that you're going outside of the terms of the naming agreement that
Okay.
you had.
Got it. Thank you.
Otherwise, it would just follow the process outlined in the naming agreement.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. That's great.
I will call the question on referral to staff. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That carries unanimously.
Thank you.
On to 9.1 correspondence, Andrew Clan regarding proposal to create a public trail for Leonardo dated May 29th, 2026. And Anna Nikolic regarding Memorial Trail for Leonardo dated June 1st, 2026. Yes, Councillor Fast.
I appreciate receiving this letter. This is a thoughtful letter and it's a year later. And it's a sad story. But I also in this request, I see a common thought out there that it's so simple and inexpensive to create a trail. And unfortunately, we know that you need the land to make it on, you need a plan for it. It needs to be constructed and then it needs to be maintained over time. And I like the idea of the plaque at the Memorial Garden. So I just move that we receive this for information.
Second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Councillor Morse.
I'm wondering if we should receive for information and request staff to advise them of the opportunity for a plaque at the Memorial Garden.
Oh, we did that?
It's done already, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, it's done already. Oh, okay, thank you. Okay. Got that.
So I believe it's been moved and seconded that we
Yep.
receive. Am I correct? Any further discussion? Not seeing any. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that carries unanimously. Moving on to 9.2, Paul Houston regarding honorary plaque dated June 3rd, 2026.
Was dealt with in the delegation?
Yep.
Was dealt with in the delegation?
Although no decision was made, so council can choose to do something. It can choose to refer to staff until we have a naming policy. Up to council. Councillor Fast.
I move that we refer this to staff until we have a naming policy that that it fits with, and that's it.
Moved by Councillor Fast, seconded by Councillor Saunders. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. I will call the question. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that carries unanimously. Moving on down to new business 11.1, update to council on Metro Vancouver business. Board of Directors meeting was held on May 29th. Headline item for Bowen Island was that our MRDT submission to Metro Vancouver as our regional district was approved by the board or endorsed by the board. So that will come back to us and significantly strengthens our application. Other major pieces of business that transacted there, very long discussion on the governance report and governance action at Metro Vancouver that took up the bulk of the first couple hours of that meeting. Very diverse opinions. The consultants were there. The governance committee was there reporting on it. Continues to be disparate views on what should happen. It's been floated again by a couple of municipalities that the board needs to be smaller. Not all jurisdictions should be represented there, which I will obviously continue speaking out against. But then also some thoughts in particular around the sewage and drainage district as well as the water district and whether those should be spun out into private utilities, whether there should be a major projects board, whether Metro Vancouver Housing Corporation should be a board of Metro Vancouver, or it should be its own nonprofit housing organization. So lots of discussion and conversation that is going on there. Also notable, there were municipalities that were successful in or in the process of expanding the urban containment boundary, which Bowen Island and some of the small municipalities tend to be against. So that is something to pay attention to on that agenda. And in particular, some of the south of the Fraser regions. Yes, Councillor Jurgensen.
What does expansion of that boundary actually mean? Like, because is it not only expandable to the municipalities within the Metro Vancouver Regional District?
Yeah, so municipalities within the regional district can make applications to expand the urban containment boundary and use it for other purposes. So the idea of the urban containment boundary is that it's containing sprawl within a set amount of the region. I think more broadly, how I would frame it is that there's a question of whether certain municipalities wish to participate in a regional planning regime. So the urban containment boundary and the regional growth strategy is set by the region, and it's generally held up in any regional district, and it's held up as a agreement between municipalities and jurisdictions within a regional district of, here's how we want to control the urbanization or the sprawl or the land use within the region. And taken in conjunction with sort of what we've seen at the climate level at Metro Vancouver and now the land use level, as a spectator, and I don't say this as a spokesperson for the board, I just say it as sort of Bowen's member on the board, and as a mayor, I think as a spectator, it's concerning that there's starting to be the disintegration of a united regional front at Metro Vancouver and across the region, and given the acrimony that exists on that board as well, and the dialogue that we're seeing in the governance conversation, I think it makes it real tricky to come to a consensus of what the region should look like on all levels. And we're starting to see a polarized adversarial view on regional planning, on climate goals, on air quality, on anything that isn't sort of core municipal service delivery.
Understood. And then just to follow up to that, the urban containment boundary and regional growth strategy, because of participation of the Islands Trust, Bowen is currently exempt. Is that correct from both?
That is correct. So we do not participate in the regional planning, as the Islands Trust is our regional planning equivalent.
Okay.
Yeah.
And finally,
And certainly not to disparage or compare the Islands Trust to a regional district, but it's on the same kind of planning plane, I would say. Yeah.
okay. And finally, the expansion of it to the south of the Fraser does not mean that Bowen is of any imminent danger of being pushed into that containment boundary, as we are part of the trust.
No, although, we may see changes coming up, next term and beyond to the regional growth strategy generally, or Climate 2050, or sort of the services and programs that the majority of the regional district board want to see happen within the region. And I think those do have an impact on Bowen, just given our proximity to the mainland and the Metro Vancouver core.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Councilor Morse.
My understanding is the urban containment boundaries are specific regions within each municipality, not for the whole of the region. The other is,
Lions Bay doesn't have one.
no, we don't have one.
Lions Bay?
Doesn't have one. No, but an urban containment boundary is only part of West Vancouver, for example. It's not the whole of West Vancouver.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're outside it.
Yeah, and so, the other is, there's the survey out that I think I sent the link around to everybody to fill out. So you certainly, if there's people suggesting not all small communities should be on there, we should all be filling out that survey to say, yes, all members should have at least one vote, one seat.
And if I'm not mistaken, given the emails and comments you provided, Councilor Morse, I believe we've invited Metro Vancouver to come present on the governance review. It was certainly something that we discussed. Yes, no?
No, we have not done
Okay.
that. Sorry.
So we will be inviting them to come take Bowen's feedback.
But we should fill out the survey too, so we're there.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
And all the documents are with that
Yep.
link I sent.
And, certainly a question, ultimately, those sorts of decisions lie with the province through legislative amendments. So it'll be something that we can talk about with our municipal affairs counterparts when we see them in September. Okay. Yes.
Regarding Islands Trust, shall I lead off or do you want to?
You done translate yet?
TransLink. Yes, so nothing much interesting from TransLink in the open meetings, continuing to talk about investment and how to continue doing our best to enact the Access for Everyone plan and Transport 2050 at the open meeting. There's going to be another investment plan coming in short order. Usually investment plans at TransLink, which get approved by the Mayor's Council, will happen on kind of four-year cycles. But there was an interim one put in place to cover a funding gap, so there will be another round of investment planning coming in the next year. Update on bus rapid transit programs. So TransLink is committed to moving forward with bus rapid transit. The banner one for that would be relevant to Bowen Island is a connection between rapid BRT line between Park Royal and Metrotown, so West Vancouver and Burnaby, and being able to get there quickly. It wouldn't be a complete dedicated lane. There'd be, a couple of areas where it would be a rapid bus, but it would be a straight connection that would get people off of the North Shore into Burnaby. Councillor Morse, you had a question?
I'm trying to find it, but seems to me we got a notification from TransLink that we got a MUP grant. Looking. Here we go, funding for Cross Island multi-use path from Charlie's Lane to Forster Lane.
Mhm.
It's came out from Government Relations on the 28th of May.
Yeah, I would assume that staff would deal with that as we've decided not to go ahead with that project.
Well, that was the curiosity question.
Yeah.
Out of the two.
Okay, over to our islands trustees.
Okay, you want to start?
Go ahead.
Okay. We had financial planning last week. The link is in the agenda there if you want to have a look. Basically, we had our audit committee meeting right before it, a clean audit of the Islands Trust Conservancy as well. We shifted some budget timelines earlier in the year with the help of our Derek Coburn is our fill-in now instead of Julia Mobbs for a year. And so this was his first meeting with us. And we approved the budget assumptions and principles and sent it off to Trust Council, which happens next week. And then we also had a meeting about the CAO performance appraisal. This will be Ruben's first appraisal coming up, so we set a schedule around it. And
Can I do that one?
please go ahead.
Chair committee. So there's.
Oh, sorry. Gosh, that's right, you were.
So the new committee that we've got is the CAO Performance Evaluation Committee. And I think what's going to be of interest for Bowen is we're going through the schedule quite quickly over this summer in terms of we've had the first meeting and they're engaging a consultant, and we're going to work on the performance metrics and the evaluation methods that are going to be used. And I think it's mostly going to be a survey, but I think the metrics, performance metrics, and what we're looking at in terms of the purposes of this to promote accountability, leadership, continued improvement, align performance and strategic goals, open and constructive feedback, and to ensure effectiveness, continued effectiveness. So I'm going to be paying close attention to all of the suggestions that we get from the consultant. And I think that we don't have the same sort of criteria. And I think that there's things that we can pick and cherry pick from this that might be of some help in our the work that we do here. So
yeah. Congratulations to our new chair of that committee. Hadn't had a chair before, and so Judy was elected. Yes, very good. And
I
Trust
think we
Council.
announced that the last time.
Yeah, Trust Council's coming up next week. And it's a Zoom meeting, and the schedule is the easiest place to see what's going on. And it's basically getting ready for the election and wrapping up some other things and talking about next steps for the trust policy statement and amendments to bylaws regarding little elections agreements, meeting procedures, that kind of thing.
We are starting early. We have to start early on the budget process in terms of the new council that would be coming in would be elected, and their first meeting would be well along in the budget process. So their first major meeting is going to be December. So this council is going to try and get as much together as possible, one of which is going to be the Bowen Island appropriation. So that is something that we're going to be, I'm not sure where, how, or when, but that's something that we're going to make sure is on the agenda.
Okay. And I'm curious about the policy statement and what's the sense of next directions with that, as it sounds like it's paused for this
The
term, or has
minister has said
been.
they have no time to work on it, so
Okay.
we're going through all of the, and I think in terms of the feedback that we get to the open questions on our OCP, that's proven to be very time consuming and depending on how many people we get answering the survey, like we've got overloaded with the staff trying to just go through those open-ended questions.
Right.
So there's a lot there that we're going to have to, and there's some very, very difficult statements that have been made by some people. So it's trying to figure out how to deal with the communities that have reacted so strongly to primarily the reconciliation, but also the funding.
Mhm.
So figuring out, how to work with communities and what the strategic plan is going to be for communication and working with getting out and now that we have to take more time, the ministry is not able to respond, then it's like, okay, what's the next step going to be? And that's what we're going to be discussing at Trust Council. How to get back into communities.
Because we had the committee the whole, a few weeks ago to receive the consultant's report. The consultants presented, and then there was a staff report. So all that info is there. Now we need to figure out what to do next. And there'll be some other policies and things that'll come up for the next, when they're updating their agreement registries, updating some letters of understanding with BC Hydro and that kind of thing. That one they're gonna ask to remove it. So they're kind of getting things in order.
Right. I had a very warm and productive meeting with Chair Patrick in Whistler last week. She was there visiting a conference while we were accepting our community center award, and was congratulated on we were congratulated by Chair Patrick on the release of our OCP draft and the engagement that we've done on it, and seemed positive, something that she'd like to see mirrored on Salt Spring, it seems. Yeah, and she looks forward to working with us through the election. Okay, not seeing any further questions or comments. Moving down the list to question period. I'll look to our corporate officer for any folks online or in the room that would like to ask questions of us today. Not seeing any. I will look for a motion to adjourn, please. Moved by Councillor Getty, second by Councillor Jurgensen. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. So we'll take 8 minutes and